Amidst the stretches of YouTube lies another death battle related podcast. One where they apparently debate over the internet because they are afraid of germs. One where they debate characters from Better Call Saul. And one where whenever they can't refute a point, they'll put a pin in it. Wait, their names are Saul, Germ, and Pin? Damn, I misunderstood the assignment so bad for this. Welcome to DBM Cast, a versus podcast filled with casual versus debates and matchups that can be quite unconventional. Every part of these debates I discuss are their arguments, so even if I don't say their names a million times, just know that these aren't my words. Let's not stall though. Everyone has been waiting so long for this. Let's just start with my least favorite matchup they've ever discussed. Number 17, Captain Hook versus King K. Rool. These two are over-eccentric pirate captains who have quite the narcissistic personalities. They both provide actual danger while being very comedic individuals. And most importantly, they are both stupid. Saul reps Captain Hook and Germ reps King K. Rool, so I'm going to be as real as I possibly can. This whole idea is stupid. I really have a problem with characters that are a full composite of themselves, versus a character who got virtually no compositing at all. This whole debate just isn't fair. Let me just show some examples for you. Just with their normal equipment, it doesn't look too bad. Captain Hook has a pistol, swords, bombs, and a spyglass. Not too shabby. King K. Rool has a gun that shoots cannonballs, a gun that freezes people, explosives, and barrel items which can grant differing effects like making him invincible, summoning vultures, or even creating a tornado. He has a mind swap helmet, an item that lets him travel dimensions, and best of all, a propeller that lets him fly. This sounds like a total stomp, right? Well, let's get into the real bullshit. Now, I'm not even going to bring up the crossovers that Hook has been in like Fortnite, because honestly, I would rather dolphin dive onto a highway than think about Hook winning based on Fortnite scaling. Hook doesn't even need that. Saul has Hook's AP at you need a multi based on Kingdom Hearts, I believe. And his speed is at 23 trillion C to infinite speeds. King K. Rool only gets from universal to multiversal in AP and 880 quadrillion C. King K. Rool is fucked stat-wise. But he has a better arsenal, right? Well, no, he doesn't. Because Saul brought up all of Hook's magic. Hook can deflect magic with his sword, can use stellar magic to see his opponent's weaknesses. He can fly with fairy dust. He can mark people with his sword to weaken them and prevent themselves from healing. And he can harm spirits, which is good because King K. Rool can come back as a spirit. Hook also has many useful abilities, like Overboard, where if Hook is targeted by multiple people, his normal attacks will knock back and stun targets. Duelist Edge, which gives him a strength increase the more he defeats enemies that he's marked. And Cold Steel, which will let him avoid all incoming attacks for a few seconds and counterattack other enemies. There's no way Rool wins this. King K. Rool has an island laser that Hook could probably just tank. A magic barrel that could seal Hook if he wasn't way faster. Teleportation wouldn't help him much in this fight, and even becoming a kaiju wouldn't help because it would just make King K. Rool a bigger target. Any and all of his magical abilities could get reflected no matter how powerful he is. If you can't tell with all this crazy bullshit, Captain Hook wins this. Now, I didn't bring up the crystal coconut yet, but that wouldn't change my argument. Not only is Hook so fast that he could just kill King K. Rool before he can use it, but he also has a bunch of Heartless at his disposal, which Saul says can only be killed by attacks that can stop their regeneration, which I believe is wrong. It's true that Sora couldn't harm Heartless with his wooden sword at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 1, but by the end, Sora starts harming the Heartless with a similar wooden sword. Why is that? Well, most likely because of Sora's affinity with magic. You don't need a Keyblade to destroy a Heartless. Leon and Cloud kill them with normal sword swings, and Tifa kills them with her bare hands. Hell, even Twilight Town's electronic defense system was able to target and kill a Heartless. Now, these people could be using magic to defeat the Heartless, but at least to my knowledge, that isn't happening. I'd also like to bring up an inaccuracy that Saul keeps stating, that nobodies are non-existent beings. This is outright false. I can go into all the nuances on why this is wrong, but I'll try to keep it simple. Nobodies are stated to be non-existent, but that is only in a philosophical sense. Nobodies do exist. Naminé even tells Roxas that he was never supposed to exist, and Roxas is a nobody. Nobodies are the husks of the body and soul after the heart has been turned into a Heartless. They do exist on the physical plane. Hell, this is a major plot point in Dream Drop Distance and Kingdom Hearts 3, having Xemnas literally state that they were lying to give the organization a purpose to strive for. I don't really want to talk more about this because it truthfully isn't important to this debate, but this is something that Saul has used in his arguments for Roxas versus Starkiller, and the only reason I didn't bring it up there was because I'm certain that Roxas still outclasses and outscales Starkiller in every single way, so it wasn't that important. But now this is the second time I've heard this from him and I wanted to give my take. Anyways, Hook can get revived after death and has Excalibur, which stops him from getting targeted by magic. The Crystal Coconut can grant many wishes, but my only wish at this point is to start talking about a good matchup. And hey look, I'm getting my wish. Number 16, Brainiac versus the Master. They are both the smartest beings in their own universes, and I think that's it. I'm pretty sure people just want to see two of the smartest characters in all of fiction fight each other, and I am all for that. This is hard to write for, seeing as I have about 2 pages of notes with so much information on them. Pin reps Brainiac and Saul reps the Master. Let's get the first cat out of the bag. Brainiac is strong as hell. He scales to Superman and has an entire army of drones that can stand up to Superman for a bit. That's already a massive feat right there. He is also by far the smartest person in DC, making people like Lex Luthor seem foolish at points with how much Brainiac outsmarts him. Not only is Brainiac super smart and super strong, he has mastered all forms of combat, so even in a one-on-one fight with someone of equal strength, he'd still be skilled enough to take the win. The Master seems far less impressive, but he does have quite a few things. He's the smartest character in the Doctor Who universe, which is funny because Doctor Who is already ridiculously smart. He has something called the Glory. If you control the Glory, you can have control of more than the whole multiverse. He isn't as skilled as Brainiac in combat, but he has infinite strength and speed, so the two should be comparable in some way. One of the most impressive things that he has is the TARDIS. The TARDIS is a sentient time machine that could block attacks from higher dimensional beings. It can block heat signatures, can teleport someone outside of the TARDIS whenever it wants, travel through time and space, and even manipulate time and space within the TARDIS itself. The Master is linked with the ship telepathically, and it can be a very important factor in this fight. Brainiac also has a spaceship of his own, and it by itself looks more impressive from the outside looking in. I mean, Brainiac has the Skull Ship, which has a particle beam weapon that destroys planets. It has a grapple beam, a force field that can tank hits from Superman, has metal tendrils to attack and restrain people, planets, and even again, Superman. This ship can turn invisible, even to the point that Superman's X-ray vision wouldn't work on it. Beams of red sun radiation, ion rockets, homing torpedoes, a solar aggressor that will make a star supernova, mega spears that can destroy planets, a shrinking cube that can shrink whole timelines or people until they don't exist anymore, can time travel and force others to time travel, and has a near infinite supply of robots and Brainiac bots that inhabit his ship, and he can teleport anywhere he wants. That's a crazy arsenal. That doesn't do anything to the Master, but it's still crazy. The TARDIS can't really be seen or invaded much by outside sources, so Brainiac couldn't send his crew there to attack the Master. The Master can summon the Daleks to fight all of Brainiac's robots, and they are no pushovers. The TARDIS can get hit with higher dimensional constructs and be fine, so none of Brainiac's weapons could harm it. Plus, it could just time travel, so restricting it won't work either. The TARDIS can change its own size, so shrinking it doesn't help. And the Master exists outside of time, so doing things like forcing a time travel wouldn't do anything. It would just be a BFR that he can instantly return from. Brainiac wouldn't even be able to try and change the past, since the Master can remember when time is altered. Brainiac also has something called the War World, a techno-organic planet that Brainiac controls. This ship is filled with strong alien warriors that conquer worlds that even Darkseid fears. Brainiac can also teleport these warriors to the battlefield. And just to mention, the normal lightning on this planet harms Superman, so the scaling for these warriors must be really high. Now, Brainiac himself can shoot lasers, scan for info and tech, create force fields, and has metal extending robotic arms. But the Master would take hand-to-hand combat as well. The Master has a laser screwdriver that can mess with legitimately any type of tech, which is most of Brainiac's arsenal. He can also merge timelines together, manipulate energy, erase memories, create heat, regenerate, and has some sort of dimensional manipulation. The Master also has a sonic umbrella, and the Key of Rassilon that lets people enter the Matrix, which is an AI that stores all of the Time Lord knowledge. Even if the Master gets overwhelmed with enemies, he can see all of time all at once and is smart enough to always calculate the best options he has. Even if you give Brainiac someone like Doomsday as a unit he could just send out, does he have fate on his side? Time Lords are favored by reality. Fate even wants Time Lords to win their many encounters and will bend itself to aid a Time Lord in sticky situations. Not to mention that the Master can see causality, the entire multiverse, and stop someone from existing. The Master was able to essentially kill off his entire species, and these guys had all of the biological advantages that he had. He truly is the strongest and smartest Time Lord of them all. Brainiac can also not only see multiple timelines, but exist as a higher dimensional being. He survived the New 52 and kept merging with himself from other timelines until he became a god himself. So there are arguments on if his true self can harm the TARDIS, but the Master is also a multi-dimensional being. Time Lord bodies exist in a metaspace, so what we see isn't exactly them. Brainiac in this form takes the advantage over the Master though. He can read and swap minds, create illusions, overload someone's brain to knock them unconscious or kill them, ensnare minds with their worst nightmares, induce pain, alter someone's personality, sense minds, produce astral projections, and neutralize nervous systems. No amount of the Master manipulating probability will save him from all of that. Pin also brought up a few things on Brainiac's end that don't matter, like his technopathy, which lets him hack tech, and his remote control falcon that kidnaps kids. After all that crazy shit, we needed a palate cleanser of easily digestible material. The Master has the Armageddon Spear, which can tear reality apart to the point that if reality did reform, it would carry no similarities to the previous reality. But Brainiac is unaffected by the New 52 though, so I think there's a good argument that at his current godly form, this wouldn't do anything to him either. The Master could resist mind manipulation, but transferring consciousness isn't the same thing. And the Master could change fixed points in time and has a paradox machine, which could potentially erase every Brainiac. But is that likely? Who would actually win this fight? The winner has to be Brainiac. The Master just doesn't have the arsenal or power to take on Brainiac after his god form. I almost still gave it to the Master, since people who can see the future can't get any knowledge on the Time Lords because they exist outside of time, and the Master could kill Brainiac if he tried to absorb all the information in the Master's brain. But honestly, I doubt these things would be much help, especially since Brainiac is smart enough to run 1 trillion simulations quickly and his processing speed is similar to the speed of the Flash, so I doubt the information overload would work. This seems like a mismatch to me. It's a fun idea, but the potential for a death battle fight is certainly lacking. Number 15. Moro versus T-Rex. These two were both sealed away because of their pursuit to consume power. They both break free from their prisons and consume enough energy to become nearly unstoppable. And of course, they both kinda got defeated by the power of friendship. Saul rep T-Rex and Pin rep Moro. Now I'm gonna be real with you. I don't watch My Little Pony, nor do I really have any intentions of ever watching the show. But I do know how high these characters scale, so I do have a bias towards T-Rex for this debate. Both Moro and T-Rex can absorb magic, although T-Rex has to be close to absorb magic while Moro can absorb magic and energy passively. Pin says that Moro has to be in a fight to absorb magic, which I'm pretty sure is wrong. He has absorbed planets and people before without attacking them, so even if it is slow, he can still just absorb passively. They both gain the abilities of the people they absorb, Moro gaining the abilities of Ultra Instinct, Piccolo's regeneration, Kamehameha, Spirit Fission, which wouldn't do anything here since T-Rex doesn't absorb spirits, Instant Transmission, and Mafuba. Moro also absorbs 7-3, who had a backup of a ton of powers and could steal abilities with just a touch. T-Rex now has the power of Twilight Sparkle and the Princesses, who can merge infinite dimensions together, which is much stronger than anything Moro has done. They also both have immeasurable speeds, so at least they're about even in one category. T-Rex, after all of his absorptions, can now open portals. BFR, although Moro has instant transmission, so that doesn't really matter. Telekinesis, Fly, create force fields, and has all of Discord's resistances after draining him of his power. T-Rex can resist mind manipulation, dream manipulation, possession, petrification, transmutation, soul manipulation, and time manipulation. Way better than Moro's resistances. Moro can resist temperature, cosmic radiation, empathy manipulation, disease manipulation, and Hakai. Some of Moro's natural abilities are his ki manipulation. He can fly, shoot energy, track people by reading their ki, create barriers, and travel dimensions. With his magic, he can read minds, use telekinesis, and hold people in place. There's 2 reasons I think T-Rex wins this, and neither are his obvious strength advantage. For one, he has the Bewitching Bell, and even though Saul tried to lie and say it was just a flash of light that stole powers, it being a beam does not change much of the argument. Moro has his Ultra Instinct though, so even if T-Rex did fire the Bewitching Bell at Moro, he could dodge it. Which leads to reason number 2. T-Rex can just bind Moro in place. Not even Discord could get out of this telekinesis. So I really doubt Moro could either, leaving him wide open for absorption or disintegration. Even though Saul for this entire cast was whiny as all hell, he still had better T-Rex arguments. It just goes to show that even when you debate at a disadvantage, you could still pull through a victory if your character is just that much stronger. Sorry, Pin, you really deserve a victory one day. Number 14, Henry Stickmin versus Markiplier. These are 2 thieves from Choose Your Own Adventure stories that are quite crazy and ridiculous overall. Not deep connections, but interesting to say the least. At first I was like, what the fuck? Why are they debating for a streamer? But I didn't even know about these whole shows that Markiplier was putting on. I don't really watch his content and have never really known what he's all about, but after listening to this weird game show thing sounds kinda cool. Henry Stickmin is rep by Saul and Markiplier is rep by Germ. Just off the bat already, both Henry and Markiplier come from worlds where they have many alternate timelines. These timelines are still sort of canon in the series no matter where they go, with Markiplier's mind transferring to another him from another timeline upon death, and Henry using his retry screen whenever he fails the mission. It's important to note that this retry screen is canon. Henry can just reset time and retry an encounter as many times as he likes, and the retry is not limited to Henry's death. Henry could just do something stupid and fail the mission, and he still could just reset time and try again. The only way you can kill either of these characters is to destroy their entire multiverses, to which they both agree that Henry's multiverse would be larger. More on that point later. They both have some similar weapons, things like rifles, handguns, revolvers, pistols, and even a grappling gun. Some weapons that Henry has that Mark doesn't are his sniper rifle, harpoon gun, tranquilizers, guns that shoot portals and wormholes, guns that shrink people and objects, the force gun from Half-Life, and the guns that help him no-clip through objects. Mark's arsenal seems way more limited comparatively, only adding a rocket launcher, bombs, and a gravity gun. They both have hammer space, so they both should be able to pull out any of these weapons whenever they wish. But this is the easy stuff. They both have so much more than their guns. Henry has objects from different games in his arsenal, like the Duck Hunt Blaster, Zack's Buster Sword from Final Fantasy VII, and even Missing No from Pokemon. But I believe that every time Henry uses Missing No, it causes that timeline to crash. Henry also has the Y crystals from Pokemon and can use a super powerful Z move as well. Henry has some melee and defensive weapons, swords, shields, metal fists, hot knives, chainsaws, C4s, etc. Markiplier didn't get any specific melee options, but Germ did mention the box, which in his own words, is a mystical box of unimaginable power, a temporal anomaly, a cosmic wrench in spacetime that causes shifts in time, plotline alterations, and strong coincidences to manifest themselves into reality. This box contains a cursed monkey statue that can possess you if you look into its eyes, the world's oldest picnic basket that contains a tuna sandwich that will cure zombification, a skeleton key that will unlock any lock in the universe, a device to turn back time, and 2 ancient fairies that will grant any wish. The only things in this box that could contend with Henry are the 2 fairies and the monkey statue. But Henry has his own ways of possession, and his ways are better. He can use the crystals from The Sims or Cappy from Mario to possess anyone he wants, and neither have resistances to possession. Mark is smarter, having access to an alien database that contains every secret in the universe, and every technological advancement. He also has access to the orbital laser homing bombardment beacon. But honestly, Henry has so many ways to avoid this. Not only is Henry fast enough to reflect bullets from orbit, he can also teleport, fly on clouds, reverse gravity, and wear the power armor, which would up his defense immensely. I'm pretty sure they said Henry was faster and stronger, but Mark was more durable, so things like Henry punching a helicopter away isn't much to brag about. But Henry could divide by 0 to destroy the entire universe, as well as have multiple ways to corrupt the universe. Henry has a time machine to travel through time if he doesn't just reset it himself. He has the command melody from Zelda, and has Charles, who pilots a helicopter and always has the greatest plan. But what could Charles do to the 2,000-year-old salt shaker? I have no idea what this does, Germ just mentions it and doesn't explain it. They both have ways to send the other through time. Henry with a stand named Reference, who can send enemies and objects through time, and Markiplier has a portable temporal displacement device, which can send the user into multiple alternate timelines. Which, come on, that would be so fun, just to see them both get sent into a timeline where they could have a completely different arsenal. There's just so much potential for the fight. In Henry's case though, it seems Henry has more timelines and has the potential of sending Markiplier to a dimension where he never built the warp core. Oh yeah, the warp core can open many different space-time wormholes and cause all of reality to crash and reset. When it gets destroyed, it releases energy equivalent to a star. It's very powerful, but Henry has ways to deal with it even if it is in the picture. He can use Reference to send it through time, turn it into an Animal Crossing leaf and pick it up, and even if he tries something random and it fails, Henry can infinitely retry by his normal retry screen, or he has the save state which does exactly what it sounds like. He can save and reload the game whenever he wants. But a lot of this debate doesn't really matter at all at the end of the day. Henry could melt Mark's bones, could stop Mark from attacking with the distraction dance, which would force Mark to dance uncontrollably, hit Mark with the Fusro Da, pickpocket his important items, teleport around to confuse him, and make himself intangible so he doesn't get hit. Mark could compare to Darkiplier, who was able to defy his own script, throw Henry into space where Mark could survive but Henry couldn't, and could have multiple Marks from multiple timelines dogpile Henry. None of this would matter if they both couldn't get past the other's resurrection. Mark did have a machine that threatened the entire multiverse, but Henry's multiverse is larger, so I doubt it's a good win con. And Henry's universe could get destroyed, but he could just use the retry screen to try again. It's a matter of what would happen first. Would Mark get past the retry screen, or would Henry kill every Mark in all timelines? I think Henry has the more viable win con. I didn't see any proof that Mark would be able to engage with a screen like the retry screen, while we've seen evidence of Henry being able to kill Mark in so many different ways. To defeat Henry, you need to have the ability to get past that retry screen. But this is still a fun idea. I just will never rank it highly because that is just Markiplier, and I'm not a huge fan of having streamers or real people on the show. It was a really fun debate though. These guys are very creative and do their research well. The Master versus the Cyber Controller. I didn't write connections for some reason. I'm pretty sure it's just two guys that control armies with their minds who have to be stuck in a chair. Anyways, Saul repped the Master, and oh my god, Slender Man repped the Cyber Controller? This might be the first time we hear the Slender Man talk. Let's start with what both of these characters can do themselves. They are both pretty much attached to chairs from my understanding, with the Master having two Gatling guns attached to his podium. They both are always linked to their armies. The Master is physically linked to his whole army, and the Cyber Controller is linked to all of his troops from the Cybus network. The Master has some psychic powers, being able to cause hallucinations and brain damage to his enemies. The Cybermen may look like robots, but there is still an organic brain in there, so they should still be affected by this. Where the Cybermen can fight on as a head, they have no regeneration capabilities, whereas the Master and his troops do have minor regeneration powers. The Master can absorb people and make them a part of his hive mind. When he does this, he gains their information and can convert them into parts of his army. You might be thinking that, wait, the Cybermen are mostly robotic, and you'd be right. It's a good thing the Master can absorb technology, as we've seen when he merged with the Overseer's terminal. So the Cybermen isn't safe from absorption. Now, the Master can see into the future, but so can the Doctor, and the Cybermen are still able to hit him, so I don't think it's as big of an advantage as people think. These two, however, aren't the main fighters in this fight. That belongs to their armies. The Master can summon thousands of super mutants to aid him in battle. These are some big green motherfuckers, and they have lots of weapons. For their melee options, they have different swords and nail boards, but they also have more interesting weaponry, like their power fists, which are mechanical gauntlets that hit really hard, and the rocket-powered sledgehammer, which is a sledgehammer that's rocket-propelled. When it comes to close range, the Cybermen get really demolished. All they can do is manipulate electricity to stun or disintegrate people with a touch. And they have earpods, which if they get placed onto someone's ears, it lets the Cyber Controller control their whole mind and body. For long-range equipment, the Super Mutants have miniguns, Gatling lasers, laser rifles, flamethrowers, assault rifles, pistols, and most importantly, the Fat Man, which is a rocket launcher that launches mini-nukes. Saul apparently says that some super mutants even do a type of self-sacrifice by throwing the mini-nuke into the ground like a touchdown. Now that I need to see. The nukes and the laser weapons would have an effect on the Cybermen, I'd say, but the normal bullets would do nothing to them. On top of his super mutants, the Master also has humans who help him. They are called the Children of the Cathedral, and they just have laser pistols, so they probably die pretty quickly. The Master has someone called the Lieutenant. He has a Gatling laser, a bionic eye, which Saul didn't say what it did, and some big heavy metal armor. He is the strongest mutant in the Master's army and would definitely make a dent in the Cybermen's army. Speaking of, the Cybermen have millions of robots in their army, vastly outdoing the number in the Master's army. The Cybermen can shoot electricity. They have a cyber wrist blaster that Germ says a lot of words for, but it's just a beam that can kill someone immediately. It even bypasses most armor and durability, so not even the general is safe. They also have another laser called an explosive charge. It's just a stronger laser. That's just a very creative name, I'd say. They have poison darts they can shoot from their mouths to make someone dizzy, distort their vision, and pass out. They have an info stamp that has all the information about the Doctor. This can come out as a projection of events, and if someone gets hit with this projection, it could rewrite all of their memories to convince them that they are the Doctor. They have hypnotic singles that take control of people's minds on a large scale. Little cyber rodents that can turn you into a cyber slave when they bite you. Cyber drones and dogs. A giant kaiju mech called the Cyber King, which has a mortar launcher and laser cannons. Although if its connection to the host breaks, it will explode. It seems like this matchup is pretty even, right? The Master's troops have better weapons, but the Cyber Controllers have vastly more numbers and better technology. We then get into the scaling and the end of this debate. And I hope nobody takes offense to this, but it kinda sucks. Like, the end of this debate made me actively dislike this matchup. Let's start with the scaling. The Cyber Controller and his minions are way weaker, way less durable, and way slower. Although I'd say to catch the Doctor off guard, they need to have crazy reaction speeds. This leads to the worst part about this debate. All amount of civility was thrown out of the window and Saul didn't even attempt to understand the points Germ was trying to make. For instance, I do agree with Saul that the Master would only need to absorb one Cyberman before he can become a part of the cyber network. But I would also agree with Germ that the machine that turns off the Cybermen's emotions would also play a factor here. To what extent? I'm not sure. But it's at least something you should discuss. Instead, Saul just says, nope. Don't care about that argument. It just doesn't make sense to me because there is something there to talk about. I'm not trying to shit talk Saul at all, because it is one of his tactics that I'll get into at the end of the video. But it was just a tiny bit annoying that certain arguments were just discounted for no reason. I mean, I mostly even agree with Saul that the verdict wouldn't change based on this. I just hate that it was just thrown out the window and Germ was completely defeated. This happens in another debate later on, and once again, I'll talk about that at the end of the video. The Master wins this based on stats alone, but it is closer than people may think. The the Cyber Controllers do have certain things that they can do to win, like send the Master into the Time Vortex with the Dimensional Vault to instantly kill him, stopping time in an area and just disintegrating his troops. Saul says that if the Master connects himself to that temporal status field, he could be immune to the time stop effects of that device. But then that device can easily be destroyed and it would theoretically kill everyone attached to it, including the Master. But I do think the Master being able to do things like physically crush people's organs, his area of reversion, that creates a psychic field that would assault a person's mind, meaning that no one would be able to even get close to him. And the fact that the Master can get into the Cybus network and destroy the Cyber Controller's mind from a distance. The Master just has way too many win cons, so I think he would take the win at the end of the day. It's not a terrible matchup, but after this debate, I can do without it. Number 12. Father versus Big Mom, two parental named figures who are leaders of evil organizations that are feared within their own worlds. They manipulate their own children into doing terrible things. They are both prone to becoming very angry, making themselves more powerful. And they both have contrasting upbringings that turn them into the cruel people we know today. This one is so funny to me. Father is a character with barely any real appearances, but the fact that he doesn't outright get stomped by Big Mom is hilarious. Saul repped Father and Germ repped Big Mom. This is a unique fight of flame manipulation versus soul manipulation. Father can shoot fireballs, streams of fire, turn himself into a bolt of flames, and can shapeshift his body into anything, whether it be a giant head or an actual fucking dragon. Now where has Big Mom fought a dragon before? Big Mom has control of souls. She can implant her soul into inanimate objects like clouds and fire to create minions. And she can even steal someone's soul as long as they fear her. Saul states that the only person that Father ever feared was his own father. And with all that crazy shit in K&D, I think that's a feat. That being said, I doubt that Big Mom would be able to steal his soul, although she could steal the souls of other people or things to add to her own lifespan, make herself larger, or add a soul to an animal or object to give it life. Her creations are stated by Germ to be at least half as powerful as she is, and I'd say that's a safe spot to scale them to. She herself would be scaled from multi-continental to moon level, with possible arguments for planetary, but I'm not sure I buy those arguments. Her speed would be calced from FTL to MFTL, based on the fact that One Piece characters react to light speed attacks all the time. Father scales AP-wise to a machine that was said to be able to freeze the entire Earth, and Father was able to overpower that machine. If you don't believe that though, then both of their powers and speed would be about equal, seeing as Father can fight people who can react to space travel, and he once turned into a dragon and fired a blast so powerful that it penetrated the planet's outer crust. For abilities, Big Mom has all sorts of haki that would let her see the future, give her a power boost, and add to her durability. She can give life to her bones and have them actively heal themselves, and has a berserk mode where she becomes far more aggressive and powerful. I don't exactly know if she becomes stronger in that mode, but Father also gets stronger the angrier he gets, so even if you don't believe that, I still think their strength evens out. Father can create 30 to 40 duplicates of himself, although they would get destroyed after one hit from Big Mom. And Big Mom has a scream that causes pain, meaning that she could take out his army instantly, even if Father could make more clones. She also has her own troops to try and contend with the growing number of clones. Big Mom can become stronger as she ingests sweets, but Father has a machine that would turn all food into broccoli, meaning she could pretty quickly lose a big food and power supply. Big Mom's hat doubles as a sword, and Father's cigar can age someone until they die. Germ argues that Big Mom could absorb souls to add to her lifespan and reverse the effects, but the beam is pretty instant, so I'm not sure how good of a counter that is. With their stats being even and the fact that both can fly, this would really come down to abilities. Big Mom does have some resistances to fire and electricity, so that's some big marks against Father, but Father has the transmutation orb that turns anyone who gets hit by it into an animal. I'm sure Big Mom could still fight as an animal, but with his aging beam and the fact that he could continuously make duplicates to overwhelm Big Mom, I think Father would win. They both argued really well though, and I love this debate. I can do without this as an episode though. I don't personally see much appeal with the concept, but I'm sure based on this debate that they can make it a great episode. I'm just not too attached to these characters, and I'm not sure what kind of story you can tell here. At the end of this debate, they say at least they didn't debate Father versus Father from FMA. Well, that's it. This is now getting bumped to the bottom of this list. You dissed a matchup I like. Moving on. Number 11, Dr. Coomer versus Spampton. These two are eccentric men who speak in very bizarre patterns. They are both troubled by great knowledge even though they seem kooky on the surface. They are both restrained to their certain lives while actively wanting to break free from their chains and attain something higher. And they both ally themselves with the main heroes just before betraying them, just to then ally themselves back with the hero once they realize they can't break free from their chains. These are a lot more connections than I thought for these two. And after watching the debate, hell yeah, I'd say this is fun. Saul represented Coomer and Pin represented Spampton. Where to even begin with this debate? I guess I'll start with the basics. Dr. Coomer has some pretty generic equipment. Grenades, rifles, shotguns, bows, rocket launchers, tanks, and a more unique weapon that is described as a barnacle grappling hook. At first I thought he meant something like an ocean barnacle, but he means the creature in Half-Life that has a giant sticky tongue. Spamton is less impressive in terms of arsenal. We don't really get to hear about his base form attacks, just the fact that when he attacks enemies, he attacks their soul directly. It's debatable whether Coomer has a soul though, because from what I understand, he's essentially robotic and has an AI that is self-aware that he's inside of a video game. Whether he has a soul or not is purely interpretational. I would say no, he doesn't have a soul, but other people can argue the opposite. They begin this cast by arguing about stats, and I've never been a big fan of that. For me, arguing about the different things your characters can do can start a fun back and forth, and then adding stats after that can put feats into perspective. For instance, they capped Dr. Coomer's speed at Mach 6.19, while Spamton was given Mach 1.96. Already, Coomer is much faster, and because we know this now, a lot of the abilities that get mentioned later get talked about like, yeah, that wouldn't work because he's too slow. I'd leave stats at the end of the podcast and then try to argue why speed/power matters or not. Speaking of power, they capped Dr. Coomer at large building level, I believe, while Spamton gets put at small building level. So we now know that Spamton is much slower and slightly weaker than Coomer. Coomer has a lot more than his guns. He has his different cybernetics, which lets him extend his arms and legs as well as make him more physically powerful and faster. He can jump over mountains and be fine when he hits the ground, essentially being immune to fall damage. He can tank and dodge bullets and explosions, and he can't really feel pain, which you would think is an issue, but seeing as he has better combat experience, I doubt it would be too much of a detriment. They both can make clones, but it's hard to see which one has better clones. Dr. Coomer can create 300 clones instantly, while Spamton can create an unlimited amount of clones, but they come out a lot slower. Coomer's 300 clones are also equivalent to himself, while Spamton's are much weaker. I would have to say I'd give Coomer the edge there, considering he has BFR. Pin says Spamton also has BFR, but it's contested with how Spamton Neo works. Oh yeah, I never mentioned it. Let's get into his super form. Spamton Neo is a much larger and stronger version of himself. He gained the ability of flight, although Coomer already has that ability. Spamton's words become weapons themselves. He can now regenerate, can shoot lasers, sound waves, air and light at people. He can summon other beings, heal allies, self-destruct and survive, and upload himself into a disc. I really doubt half of this stuff really matters, but it is so fun to go over how many scenarios this fight can go into. I do think Coomer still wins though. Not only can he still open portals through time, he can also calm Spamton down with the Black Mesa sweet voice and most importantly, manipulate Spamton's mind. Now, Pin did bring up that there could be other forces inside of Spamton's mind, so he could have a resistance to this. But until there is more concrete proof, I wouldn't use this as a concrete argument. Now, Spamton does have some reality warping abilities, like being able to make an infinite road, change the appearance of cars, and even change the background itself. But with all of Coomer's clones attacking all at once, I doubt Spamton would be able to keep up even in this form, especially since he can get weakened if somebody hits his strings. That's right, he's technically a puppet. Dr. Coomer is just too smart and too skilled for Spamton. But this fight ended up being one of my favorites, which is crazy because it's at number 11. Who knew I could like a matchup with two characters I didn't know beforehand? It's almost like a good debate can cause interest in a matchup, and we have so many more great debates to go through. Number 10, Agent Jones versus Booster Gold. These two are heroes that are renowned today, but who started off really selfish. They both stole technology from their world's future to return to the past and save all of space and time. And they both would go unnoticed for their achievements and what they've done, showing major growth from their self-centered days. This makes way more sense than Cable vs. Booster Gold in my opinion. And even though I will most likely never play Fortnite, I think this could make for a fun episode. Saul repped Booster Gold and oh my god, Agent Jones reps himself? Damn, I need to figure out how Saul finds guests for his show. Unfortunately, he couldn't stay long, so Agent Jones's discussion feels more like a respect thread than anything else. That isn't anyone's fault, and it is the smartest way to represent his character in this situation. I just wanted more of a debate because the person that took his place after he left was way less prepared. Understandably so. Let's get the annoying bit out of the way. Scaling. Agent Jones scales to Marvel Heralds and Booster Gold scales to DC Heralds. Let's even that shit out and move on to the interesting discussion. Agent Jones has an insane arsenal. He has all of his guns, which are fun and all, but let's talk about his heavy hitters. He can perform a Kamehameha, wield Captain America's shield, the Thunder Spears and ODM gear from Attack on Titan, Mjolnir and Stormbreaker from Thor, Spider-Man's web gauntlets, She-Hulk's fists, Silver Surfer's surfboard. He has access to a lightsaber and the Force, the Infinity Blade which increases his shield, HP, and damage, the Solid Snake EMP which makes him invisible, for some reason. Ancient Jones can make himself invisible with Mysterio's Invisibility Medallion, which only makes him invisible when he crouches. He has the Reveal Medallion, which reveals the area around Jones. He can make himself faster by ingesting spicy fish or peppers. Can bounce around the stage with bounce pads or shockwave grenades. He can build a structure and traps mid-battle. Can use a fucking hollow purple. Zeus's Lightning, the Infinity Gauntlet, Batarangs, Explosive Kunai, can ride on various vehicles in the Nimbus Cloud, and most importantly, he has the Rift Gun. This gun was made by pieces of the Zero Point, which is infinite in size. This gun can spread your atoms across the Omniverse or create portals across space or time. Every time Agent Jones time travels, Agent Jones makes a snapshot of himself. Essentially, it's a version of himself that now exists in another universe. Jones can then summon these other versions of himself to help him fight, which is something you might remember that Booster Gold did as well when he fought Cable. So there's another fun idea that makes Jones a better opponent. The biggest problem that Agent Jones would run into is how to get past Booster Gold's shield. His force field can block any single attack, whether it be physical or mental, but I do think Jones has a way around this. He can use an EMP, has a Boogie Bomb, Stink Bomb, the Storm Flip, and the Deku Smash, all of which either destroy or bypass shields. Admittedly, shields do work differently in both series. Booster Gold shield can essentially tank anything, and Jones treats his shield like another health bar. Hell, Booster could just send his shield over to Jones to either stop all of his attacks or crush him into nothing. But I think these items could stop Booster's shields, even if it's only for a moment. Booster Gold is not a pushover though. He does have a regenerating power suit that enhances his abilities, but like Saul said, he is still ridiculous on his own. Shield or not, Jones isn't taking him down easily. Booster has energy gauntlets that fire omnidirectional blasts that can either stun or kill opponents based on how Booster sets it up. He can channel that power into his suit and enhance his abilities further, but it is risky and could harm or kill him. He can fly, has goggles that do something that Saul didn't explain, can send someone through time, stop time, and has an AI named Skeets. This is an AI that can counter someone else's time travel. Although I will say Jones can counter time travel with his Rift Gun, since he's able to open and close other portals that other people open. Booster's AI can also hack high-level tech though, meaning the Rift Gun could potentially get decommissioned. If Jones takes too much damage, he could use Rift Eject to launch himself back into the sky and out of harm's way. But these won't save Jones from potentially his biggest threat, and the one thing Booster Gold has to change the winner of this matchup completely. I think this honestly comes down to if you think Booster Gold has access to the Wave Rider or not. Wave Rider is essentially Booster Gold from the future, and he's a bit crazy. He has the ability to erase entire timelines. He is made of pure matter, meaning he can shapeshift into anything to bypass any shields. He is completely intangible. He has control of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, so Agent Jones's equipment would be rendered moot pretty quickly. He knows all past and future events, and can summon infinite versions of himself from other timelines. He is crazy, but the question I would ask is, would Booster Gold be able to just pull him into this battle whenever he wants? I asked Saul this, and he said that he found it in the G1 blog. I found the G1 blog, and it didn't specify. I would honestly say no. I searched briefly and couldn't find anything to answer my question. I think it would just be Booster versus Agent Jones, and if that's the case, I think Agent Jones wins. He has ways to get past Booster's shields, which was my main question when going into this. And he has such a giant variety of weapons that I doubt Booster could keep up with. They are even in a lot of categories, so I do think this fight is pretty close. I just think that Jones edges out enough to take the win. This might come surprising to some people, since Agent Jones' side felt more like a respect thread than a debate. But when you see his arsenal and scaling, you can see that it's just crazy enough to win. Saul, you tried your best, even though I can tell you are being really nice after the original debater left. If you come up with better arguments for Wave Rider being included here, I will change my mind. Oh, never mind, Saul kept pronouncing omniscience as omniscience? He loses hands down. I'm just kidding, but who knew Fortnite would get such high scaling? That shit's whack, man. Number 9. Asgore vs Hades. These are two kings of the underground/underworld who wield red weapons, are much kinder than they appear, and are given the choice at the end of their games to be spared by the player. I immediately understood why this matchup is wanted. The dynamic between these two nerds could make for such a fun fight. But what's less fun is the debate. Asgore has only two things: Jack and shit. I'm just kidding. But there is a clear difference in abilities between these two. They both have tridents. Well, Hades has a bident, but Asgore's is more impressive. Asgore can directly harm a person's soul with his attacks, meaning he essentially bypasses durability. Asgore also has two different attacks with his trident, turning it orange and blue. Orange will only hit a target who is standing still, and blue will only hit a target that's moving. Here's where things start to suck a little though. Hades has tons of magic, which includes casting skulls to home in on enemies. These skulls can get lodged into an opponent and cause the effect called boiling blood. This causes the person who gets hit to take an extra 100% of damage. If it misses an opponent, it'll create a circle on the ground that will slow enemies down, and if this circle isn't destroyed, it will send out a large shockwave of energy on the battlefield. Hades can turn invisible and invulnerable while also curing all status effects, but he can't attack until he reverts back to being visible. You can also still see his footsteps while he's invisible, so Asgore could still track him. Asgore might also be able to hit Hades' soul while he's invisible, but I'm unsure on that one. Hades can project his voice and command his troops to attack. He can create an omnidirectional laser, but he can't use a spear while he does this. He can make things darker. He can also summon a shit ton of units and objects with a summoning circle, like vases that Hades can either use to heal himself, or smash the vase on the ground to create a small area with green hands that will stun enemies. He can summon the Inferno Bomber, which does what it sounds like. It drops Inferno Bombs. The Skull Crusher, which will bring you to the sky and crash you down. The Soul Catchers, which are butterflies that do damage when they touch you. He can summon Unlimited Skulls, the Mega Gorgon, which can shoot 3 rocks that slightly home in on enemies that can turn people into stone. And finally Cerberus, who creates a quake with falling rocks. Asgore has pyrokinesis. He can summon fire to attack someone's soul, and Hades has fire resistance, and also can heal himself twice in a fight, and also has been shown affecting souls as well. Hades wins this. He is way too powerful, can summon way too many units, and is more likely scaled higher. Asgore's AP is scaled to small to large building level, while Hades is at multi-continental, and Asgore's speed is also not much better, until you consider the fact that Frisk was able to dodge the Hypergoner, which can erase entire timelines. People argue on whether Frisk gets a speed boost in her pacifist route since they do get stronger with their determination, but I don't buy it. We directly see Frisk getting more powerful within the fight, but we don't see her speed increase ever. The only times we see her soul move faster is with specific items. We do not see her soul move faster in the Azrael or Asgore fight at all. Plus, let's take into account that the love and determination enhancements are very similar, both increasing certain stats. Speed is not something that is affected by the love system, so I don't think it affects the determination power-ups either. It doesn't give Asgore the win, but I personally think that speed scaling is fine. There's also the question on if Asgore would absorb the 7 human souls to become Photoshop Asgore, which no he wouldn't. Not only would he not be Photoshop because that's just a form Flowey chose to take, but Asgore wouldn't absorb the souls because it would be uncharacteristic. If he would have done it, he would have done so against Frisk. I think this fight has merit based on the fun interactions, but Asgore loses pretty badly in my opinion. Number 8. Agent Smith vs. Sin. They both are big bad villains of post-apocalyptic stories. Both seek to change the world around them. They both started just as normal beings, before evolving into something greater. Beings that can affect entire worlds. Both can take over multiple bodies. They both want to destroy the world because of their hatred for humanity, etc. This is an unlikely matchup with a shit ton of connections. I'm surprised anyone ever put these pieces together here to see how these vastly different characters relate to one another. So good job to whoever discovered this matchup. Agent Smith reps himself, which is based, and Saul gets his body back from Sin so she can be debated properly. They start with scaling, which I always hate, showing that Smith's AP should be at planetary, comparing to Neo who fused with the Matrix. Sin is at solar system based on a black hole she could just create, although I would love to see the calc on that. Saul, if you still have it, please send it to me. Sin can also just catch and destroy this black hole as well, meaning she is far more durable and stronger than Smith. Agent Smith's speed is around a bullet timer, with his reaction speed being anywhere from 387 trillion C to 302 quadrillion C, so his perception is insane. Sin is over 5,587 times faster than light, so she is faster in movement speed, but not reaction. She also would scale a bit higher than this because this was the speed of a ship she caught, not the overall cap on her speed. Sin can teleport, however, which would make Agent Smith's reaction speed a little less impressive, seeing as she can just zip around the battlefield instantaneously. Agent Smith can also teleport but doesn't spam it as much as Sin does. She teleports constantly. They can both fly and transmute objects, although Smith seems more impressive. He can put his hand inside of anyone or anything and turn them into another version of himself who retains all of the powers of whoever he transmuted. That is crazy. If he gets his hand inside of Sin, he could make a clone of himself that can shoot black holes. That is just crazy. And with his precognition amongst all of these clones, I'm sure that speed advantage that Sin has can really be tested. Sin can throw all of the Agent Smiths around with telekinesis, but they all have different guns to fire at her simultaneously, and I'm unsure if she would be able to stop every agent and every bullet all at once. She wouldn't be alone though. She would have an army of drones at her side to help her fight, which she can transfer her consciousness to if she is about to die in a fight. Even if she is killed, her body would become a black hole upon death, leading to a tie at best. Sin can conjure up blades from nothing, showing minor reality warping, but Smith can do things like remove a person's mouth from existence, also showing minor reality warping. Sin can hack, but Smith can resist hacking. Sin can turn invisible, but Smith can see the code of where she should be, or so says Agent Smith, the man debating for himself. Sin has better regeneration, being able to regrow whole limbs, and most importantly, cast illusions that have some physicality to them. Safe to say this fight is way closer than I thought it was. I do think Sin wins though, because like Saul says, Sin could just put a black hole at the center of the Earth and teleport away, destroying everyone on the planet before Smith would be able to stop her. But I'd love to explore a deeper side of this matchup myself. It's just so interesting. Let's start with actually watching murder drones in the Matrix first, because I still haven't seen those. God, I feel like I'm missing out now. Moving on. Number 7, Junko vs. Springtrap. These two are both manipulative monsters that take a certain amount of joy in the misery of others. This joy coming from different obsessions of theirs that consume their minds. They both fight using different robots, and they both have an AI version of themselves. Bro, I never thought this matchup would grow on me, even in the Death Battle cast that the main crew did. It didn't sell me on this matchup, but this podcast did. Junko was rep by Saul and Springtrap was rep by Pin. It's important to note that Junko would be fighting using different Monokumas. The ones that Saul brings up are the Siren Monokumas, which can alert other robots to his location, Bomber Monokumas, which Ball Monokumas that will spin and barrel towards an opponent, Junk Monokumas, which are much more durable and much more powerful than basic Monokuma, and Destroyer Monokuma, who can fly and shoot flamethrowers, which is Springtrap's main weakness. Junko had stronger basic-looking Monokuma models called Head Teacher Monokuma. There are 100 of these Monokumas as well, and all of them have access to the executions within the Danganronpa games. Things like pelting someone with a bunch of baseballs, sending people off into rockets, and tying someone down to burn them alive. This Head Teacher Monokuma can analyze targets as well, but Junko is considered the ultimate analyst, so she wouldn't really need help determining plans against her enemies. Junko herself has some weapons too, like grenades, bats, and ice picks, although they won't do much in this fight. Springtrap has something called Remnant in Agony, which lets him pair souls to objects, like what he does with all of the animatronics in the series. He effectively merges the souls of these children with the AI of the machines, which is pretty broken. The only thing that would be able to destroy Springtrap is fire, which we know Junko has based on her bombs and flamethrowers, not to mention a few of her executions. It would be hard to attack Springtrap directly though, since he would have every single animatronic in the series, which includes the sister location animatronics in Funtime Freddy, who have things called emotion discs that can manipulate the sound and sight of the person and robots around them. These discs emit a sound that can even make you perceive the other person's voices differently. It's some crazy shit. Junko would kill anyone that Springtrap makes her see no matter who it is, but it would lead to such a cool moment in the fight. The sister location mechs can trap people inside of their stomachs and crush them, but the Monokuma units have broken through steel before with their claws, so it would be more of a detriment to them at the end of the day. Junko may have way more Monokuma units, but the sister location mechs have proximity sensors, so they would always be able to see where every Monokuma is and prevent themselves from being sneak attacked or overwhelmed. I'm sure Junko could outsmart the animatronics and Springtrap, but what could happen if she got pushed into a corner? Well, Saul scaled her to both her sister and Toko, two people that would vastly outstat Springtrap with both strength and speed. They also question if she should scale to the Big Bang Monokuma, but let me just answer that question. No, she shouldn't. Toko and Komaro may have defeated that mech, but that was only with special equipment to help them destroy it for good. Speed-wise, I'd say the scaling is fine, but for strength-wise, it's more iffy for me. There's also a question of whether Junko could resist mind control, and I think the answer is really obvious. She was able to resist the mind-altering effects of Mitarai's anime. She was able to look through and analyze how the brainwashing techniques worked, without it affecting herself. At least not noticeably, that is. It's possible that her crying at the anime the first time she saw it was part of the mind control, but honestly it's hard to tell with her since she's usually just that crazy and eccentric. Plus, viewing Mitarai's video after that incident didn't cause any noticeable effects, so I think she does have some resistances to mind-altering effects. Although it is still possible for the other animatronics to take over certain Monokumas, but there just isn't enough spirits within the animatronics for this to be a noticeable win con, especially since Junko could destroy all of them at any moment. Monokuma can defy hacking, but what Springtrap does isn't hacking in the slightest, so at best, he should be able to do this. I'm honestly going to ignore all arguments they made about the flashback light. Junko never had this item. It's from a game that, at best, happened far after Junko's death. I'm against giving a character something they never used. We know Springtrap can die with fire, but we also know that souls can be destroyed in Danganronpa because of Kyo, but I don't think they are the same. Remnant can bind souls. It itself is something different than a soul. I think fire is still necessary to kill him. Now for the best part. Well, after I bring up Glitchtrap versus the Junko AI. Glitchtrap might be able to take over Monokumas, but not Junko's AI itself. so at best, this is just a moot point. Anyways, we could have a kaiju fight with Big Bang Monokuma fighting Springtrap's kaiju. This would be so awesome. I wish I could find any information on this kaiju, but they say this kaiju could steal all of the Monokumas and use it to increase the size of this kaiju. Pin argues that the stats of the Monokumas could carry over to the kaiju, but that's kinda a stupid argument, so I'm ignoring it. I think Junko wins overall. All it takes to destroy Remnant is fire, and she has that in droves. Once she realizes that that's all she needs to do, there's not much Springtrap can do to avoid it because of the stat difference. Also, notice how the Funtime Freddy and Sister Location animatronics are the only ones really mentioned? That's because the others are pretty much just fodder. I like this matchup now more than I ever did, but honestly I still like Junko vs Chris McClane more. It's cringy, I know, but it's what I like, damn it. Anyways, great debate guys. Let's continue forward. Number 6, Yuji vs Denji. These are two supernaturally powered teenagers who work for organizations created to kill monsters that come from negative emotions. Both have, or at least had, one of these powerful creatures living within their bodies for a time, and both were under constant threat from their governments, so if either of them ever went berserk, they could be killed on the spot. There's also a ton of other connections for these two, but I think the idea is obvious. It may not be my favorite for either character, but there is somewhat of a debate here. In this debate, my boy Pin represented Denji, and you're not even ready for this. The Jujutsu Kaisen reps Yuji, Saul consistently killing it with his guests. This matchup is pretty simple, so I feel like this might be a quick segment. Denji and Yuji can both regenerate, Denji by consuming blood and Yuji by using reverse curse energy. They can both regrow entire limbs, but if either of their heads get cut off, then both of them would die. Yuji is the GOAT. He punches the best. He can imbue his fists with cursed energy to harm curses, and in this case, devils. Denji has things like an axe and a chainsaw motorcycle, but obviously his bread and butter is when he turns into the Chainsaw Devil by pulling the string attached to his heart. He has chainsaws that extend from his hands and head, and he fights by essentially overwhelming someone with attacks. Obviously the Chainsaw Man's chainsaws are deadly, but Denji is kind of an idiot. Yuji is a master martial artist who is one of the only characters in the series that can use a Black Flash at will, which is a strong and fast punch that hits the soul directly. I got things wrong in my last prediction. The punch actually gives the user a power increase to the power of 2.5, which isn't the same thing as getting a 2.5 power increase. Denji should be much faster, and I believe they were calced to similar strengths, so it really would just come down to who is a better fighter. Yuji is a better fighter and has more options for combat. He can manipulate blood and fire it at people, and he can open his domain. Ryuji's domain is a closed domain, meaning that every single attack he sends out will land on Denji. Yuji's domain can slice the soul of anyone that enters it, meaning that Denji could have his head sliced off before he can react. It's true that if Denji has his connection to Pochita, the real Chainsaw Devil, broken, then the true Chainsaw Man could come out, but it wouldn't make a difference. Yuji could still just slice him into bits in seconds with his greater speed. Denji could digest Yuji's blood to become more powerful, but again with Yuji's superior speed and fighting style, it would be hard to land direct hits. Although it could be argued that if Denji digested cursed energy, he can erase that as a concept from existing and just slaughter a weakened Yuji, but I don't know how likely that is. This is such a fun fight. Again, it's not my preferred for either, but honestly this debate made me like it a lot more than I did before. I'm not sure when this fight is going to happen, but I'm excited for it when it eventually does. Number 5, Steve vs Guy Spelunky. They are both characters from indie games that explore the underground to find secrets and discoveries to some of our favorite games. Shit, that's the wrong YouTube series. The connections aren't deep, but there's a lot that can be done with this fight. Steve is rep by German, Spelunky is rep by Saul. We start this battle with scaling? Why? Because they apparently wanted to call a winner immediately. Steve's AP is scaled anywhere from 104 kilotons of TNT to 10 gigatons of TNT, while Spelunky could be 4.57 tons of TNT, too strong enough to turn himself into a constellation. I wish I was joking about this. This is fucking ridiculous. For speed, Steve is scaled from Mach 0.36 to Mach 4, and Spelunky is anywhere from subsonic to FTL speeds. So Steve is much slower and much weaker. Knowing this immediately taints the rest of this debate. It's like, look at this cool equipment. Too bad he isn't fast enough to use it. Let's just get into their arsenals. They have slightly different equipment. Steve has swords, axes, pickaxes, bows, crossbows, tridents, artifacts, shields, flint and steel, fire charges, ice bombs, TNT, a soul wizard which doesn't matter in this debate, and a soul scythe that could potentially kill souls. Spelunky has a whip, ropes, bombs, pickaxes, machetes, shotguns, a web gun that shoots a sticky web, a camera that can interact with ghosts, eggplants that transmute people, can reload those eggplants with the eggplant crown, a freeze ray, a scepter that can cleanse souls, a bow and arrow, a light arrow that was strong enough to shoot the 9 suns that scorched the earth, a clone gun that clones himself, a plasma cannon, plasma rifle, has something that will heal Spelunky when it drinks blood or vomit, which, ew, and has the mecha armor, which is like the power armor in Fallout. He also has the Power Pack, which can create a Fire Whip and large bombs. He can remove souls with the Homing Scepter, and most importantly, has Excalibur, which they scale at large country level, still far above what Germ scaled for Steve. Both Steve and Spelunky are very hard to kill. When Spelunky dies, he turns into a ghost. He can revive himself twice with the Arc to continue fighting, but Steve would have to defeat his soul to claim a victory. Spelunky can use an elixir to regain health as well as eat turkey, the healthiest of all the meats. Steve has multiple armors that he can enchant to increase stats, has multiple ways to regen his body, different potions to heal and buff stats, medicine to heal from status effects, and golden apples, which can extend his health bar and regeneration. Their mobility is pretty similar. Steve can fly, well, it's more so like long gliding, but it still counts. He has different animals to ride. He can even have night vision to fight in pitch darkness. Spelunky has a jetpack to fly, a teleporter that will send him away when he's in danger of dying, can see through walls, climb walls, and jump extremely high. Speaking of teleportation, Spelunky also has the True Crown, which will teleport him every 22 seconds, which is crazy. Steve can also teleport when he rolls, but it's nowhere near as impressive. They both have things that would help them fight in this debate, like Steve's Redstone, water breathing, and slow falling in Spelunky's 4-leaf clover, so that only leaves one more factor to cover. Steve has negative potions that will slow down, harm, and best of all, poison. Yes, finally a way that Steve can win. Germ, you've done it! You've put Saul in his place. Wait, Spelunky can't be poisoned? Well shit, that really sucks. I'm not sure what happened, but Germ debated extremely badly here. He didn't bring up any higher scaling stuff, like how Minecraft Dungeons has MFTL scaling or how the Ender Dragon contains a galaxy inside of him. Spelunky wins based on this debate, but I don't think Steve was represented very well here. I'm sure that Spelunky would still win because of his busted equipment and regeneration. It's just that I think this fight is closer than what we saw. Saul, get Noah into the debating seat and let's see who really wins. Number 4. Doofenshmirtz versus Crocker. These two hunchbacked, middle-aged men are evil geniuses that are obsessed with a single goal, and they continuously fail in different ways to achieve their goals by the interference of children and unlikely figures. This one is actually really fun. Pin reps Crocker and Saul reps Doofenshmirtz. There's so much to go over, so let's just jump right into their arsenals. Doof has a machine that will age people up and one that will de-age people, although Crocker is immune to forced aging. Doof has a machine that will turn people evil, but depending on if you think Crocker's already evil or not, this may do nothing. Doof has a machine that makes anyone listen to him when he yodels, can clone himself, can change a person's actions and emotions with the Peach Cobbler-nator, which will make anyone only think about wanting Peach Cobbler, and another machine that will make a person not care about anything. They both have magnets, and Doof can turn anyone into himself. Now that last part is contested since Pin claims that with Crocker's mind control helmet, he should be able to resist having his mind turned into Doofenshmirtz, but I don't think that's how that works. Doof's machine changes your biology to directly match his own. It's not the same as mind manipulation. Crocker isn't down and out though. Crocker has a cupcake that can grant any wish, except making the cupcake taste better. Pin says that Crocker could make multiple versions of himself, but honestly it's just a gag. So all it would amount to in the fight is him freaking out. We see multiple Crockers connected to each other, and then he would form back into one person after a second. Crocker has a wish gun if the cupcake wasn't enough, cat clones of Cosmo and Wanda to make wishes with, a magic pen that teleports him, and most importantly, a virus that goes through any piece of machinery. They both have pretty fun scaling. Crocker has survived getting chopped to pieces and having his house blown up on top of him. Scales to Jimmy Neutron's speed scaling, although in canon he's only faster than a bear, and he can lift 500 pounds. Doof can survive being hit in the head with 2 tons of tinfoil, survived falling from space, can scale slightly to Gretel who moved the sun, could be massively faster than light, and could even slow time if that wasn't enough. Doof has the stat advantage by far, but I think his best inventions that guarantee a win is not only having bots like Norm or the Platypus mech, but he can erase objects from existing, which would wipe that object from everyone's memories. And he could drain the powers of anything he shoots with another innator. So theoretically, he could take the power of the wish-granting cupcake for himself. Now they do have a slightly annoying debate about luck, saying that Doofenshmirtz is destined to lose every fight. And when Saul brings up the time Doof actually wins, Pin just says, no. Well, to end that point, Doof can transfer luck from Crocker to himself. So even if he was destined to be unlucky, he can still tip the odds, as well as having an innator that can make the least likely thing happen. And if he truly is fated to lose, then the least likely thing that would happen is Doofenshmirtz winning that fight, also negating this whole argument. Despite all that, I really like this matchup. It is so quirky and weird, and the interactions would be spectacular. This is slowly becoming one of my favorite matchups I've talked about, and I really hope it becomes a full episode, even though I think it's obvious that Doof wins. Number 3, Sauron versus Ganondorf. These two have a ton of connections. They are both higher beings before taking on their roles as the cunning and destructive dark leaders. They both manipulate the main characters into doing what they believe is saving the world, before revealing it was all a trick to continue their schemes. They both initially wanted to create a better life for the people, before their inherent evil nature caused them to go down a much darker path. This fight is excellent. There's not much more to say. I love it to pieces. But let's get to that debate. Saul reps Sauron and Germ repped Ganondorf. Oh my god, this debate is awesome. Let's get the scaling out of the way since Pin likes starting there for some reason. Sauron was the person who created the One Ring, which is an insanely powerful artifact. He can scale to the other Maya, who are the beings that sung the universe into existence. He's compared to beings like Molgoth, who was able to disrupt the orbit of the Earth or the Sun, and Orion, who was able to move the Sun itself. This would put him at 640 zetatons of TNT to 12,000 quatatons of TNT, essentially planet to star level. Ganondorf can do things like move the Blood Moon close to the planet, create a giant storm over the Great Sea, and create an eternal night, all of which would not get him near Sauron's level of power. But there is some evidence that Ganondorf can compare to the creation goddesses by scaling to Majora and Null, meaning that Ganondorf could get scaled to universal levels of power, vastly outscaling Sauron. For speed, Celebrimbor can slow down time to a point where lightning bolts and light spears appear in slow motion, and Sauron can fight fast enough to keep up in that state. Celebrimbor can also escape the Timeless Void, which is infinite in size, meaning that Sauron would be infinite speeds. Now, I don't really buy this argument, but for the sake of this debate, I'll go with it. Ganondorf by scaling to Link would be anywhere from 24% the speed of light to 245.26 c. So Ganondorf could be extremely stronger, and Sauron can be vastly faster. Their abilities are so comparable that it's scary. They can both fly, they can both shapeshift, they can both corrupt other individuals, Sauron with the ring and Ganon with as many forms of mind manipulation, possession, and corruption. It's important to note that the ring's corruption works better on evil and greedy people, and Ganon's corruption can work on spirits, meaning that Sauron isn't safe just because he doesn't have a normal body, but his soul does have protection from the ring and Aru, who is essentially the god of that world and protects the souls of all of the kin. They can both turn invisible, they can both resurrect the dead and add them to their armies, they can both live forever, Ganondorf because he is the manifestation of a curse created by demise, and Sauron because he exists on a higher plane of existence and doesn't age. Also, Ganon can turn into a dragon to become eternal as well, so they could both just be eternal. They can both remake their bodies if they die, with Ganon even being able to continue fighting as a spirit. They can both remake their souls after a time as well, with Ganon being able to continue fighting on in an unconventional body like his Calamity form. They both resisted soul manipulation, which is funny because they both have ways to attack and damage each other's souls. They can both travel to other dimensions and BFR each other, with Ganon being able to trap someone in the Twilight Realm and Sauron being able to send someone to the Infinite Void. And lastly, they both have a power source that can't be removed from them. Sauron could just put the ring back on without effort, and Ganondorf is connected to the Triforce of Power, with nothing Sauron has being able to sever that connection. We now get into their individual powers and equipment. And ooh boy, this is a doozy. For melee, they each essentially have one option. Sauron has a mace that can transform into a sword, and Ganondorf has a sword that can bypass regeneration. I'm not sure if this would work on Sauron since technically the ring could reform his body from nothing, but you could make arguments that this sword is deadly to Sauron. Sauron has magic. With it, he's able to remove people's powers, probably just magical powers, absorb and merge souls, and could possess people's souls to continue fighting if he runs out of energy. Ganon's magic is similar but different. He can shoot out and reflect magical attacks, teleport, become incorporeal, travel dimensions, manipulate the elements, nullify powers, create illusions, create barriers, has telekinesis, telepathy, generate shockwaves, seal someone inside of a crystal, paralyze someone, put them to sleep, create explosions, transmute, manipulate time and space, absorb light, and manipulate a person's soul. That's crazy, but he also has an army he can summon at his disposal. He can summon spectral knights and minions, create avatars of himself to fight, and even can create life with both Goma and Phantom Ganon. Sauron will have to work hard to not get overwhelmed, but with his superior speed, he has a good chance of winning. I think this is really close, but I'm gonna have to give this to Sauron. There's two reasons. One is that the true Sauron exists outside of his avatar's reality, meaning that Ganon would have to find a way to find the true form of Sauron to put him down for good. The problem is that the true form Sauron can do things like manipulate fate and has way stronger magic than before. Ganondorf has some reality warping, but nothing to the level of Sauron. The second is their resistances. Ganondorf can resist paralysis, fire, transmutation, corruption, deconstruction, darkness, and holy manipulations. Very impressive. But Sauron resists mind, matter, void, and regen manipulation manipulation, illusion creation, conceptual and death manipulation, and even any and all magic that Ganon could throw, meaning that Sauron's true form could get only harmed by Ganon's sword. Or the Gloom, which we have seen destroy both body and soul before. If Sauron touches this Gloom, it's possible he could die. With such a speed advantage though, I highly doubt this would happen. There's also the fact that Ganon will always come back to life because of the curse that Demise placed, meaning that as long as there is still hatred in the world, Ganon will always come back. This will take some time though, so even if Ganon still came back years later, it'd still be a victory for Sauron. What a fantastic matchup that I've never thought of before. I think this could be an amazing episode, maybe even one that gets into my top 200 list. Saul, Shur, and Pin, all of you made this such a fun time, and I can't wait to see what other matches I rank even higher than this one. Number 2. The Spy versus Agent 47. These two are both assassins who use different disguises and weapons to carry out assassinations and infiltrate enemy strongholds. Low-key, this is one of my most wanted. It's crazy how many ways this fight can go. Just look at the fan battle. That fight is more of a battle of wits than an actual one-on-one fight, and it's still thrilling. But who would win between these two deadly spies? Well, in this debate, Saul repped the Spy and Pin repped Agent 47. There's a lot to cover, so I'm going to try and talk about these characters in categories. Let's start with guns. Agent 47 has a bunch of pistols, assault rifles, SMGs, shotguns, sniper rifles, crossbows. He has a rifle with cryogenic rounds to freeze people, and a crossbow that can blind people. 47 also has many different ammo types, like explosive, body piercing, wall piercing, and shockwave ammo. The Spy has a pistol, zappers that destroy tech and revert construction, and a rifle that can be upgraded to pierce armor. In terms of guns, Spy's arsenal doesn't stack up, but what about their melee options? Well, 47 has a baseball bat, choking wire, knives, swords, crowbars, and wrenches. 47 is very creative with his kills, and Spy has his knives, which will do 6 times damage if he hits an enemy from behind, and a frying pan that I believe he says turns another person to gold, and an Emmy that does the same thing. He has the Carnivore Kunai, which absorbs HP, and the Icicle that will freeze an opponent upon death. 47 has more melee options, but he has no defense to being turned into gold, so I'd give this to Spy for melee range. How is their sneakiness though? The Spy can literally turn into other enemies to fool people. He has a watch that turns him invisible. He has an ability called Dead Ringer, which lets him drop a fake body onto the ground when he takes a critical hit, automatically having Spy turn invisible to get away. While the Spy is using his pistol, his damage and cloak duration increase slightly. Oh yeah, the Spy's disguises are also on a time limit. Agent 47 is a master of disguise. He can fool absolutely anyone with his disguises, even when they don't look convincing at all. He has a stealth sense that can see and track objects and people for miles, and this would include invisible enemies. He has Diana, who is a helper in his earpiece like Otacon. She could also help track people with a satellite, as well as provide Agent 47 with a massive info database. Essentially, she knows a lot. Agent 47 also has a camera that can scan and hack objects, some very long-distance binoculars, many different alarms on his weapons, as well as a self-destruct for anyone that tries to use his weapons against him. All of his tech is encrypted so no one can hack him. He has GPS transmitters to track people, and a micro taser to stun people. 47 takes maneuverability and disguises. I mean, Spy couldn't even sneak around 47. He would just be spotted immediately, even if he was invisible. While Spy is clever enough to spot other spies, 47 has tricked many professional killers before, so I'm not sure if he would be able to reveal 47 before it's too late. Let's go over some miscellaneous equipment for these characters. The Spy has cantinas that will grant invincibility, a grappling hook, a way to teleport back to his spawn point, a briefcase that turns into a flying machine, and a way to absorb souls. 47 has different types of poisons, poison pills, pufferfish, and a powder that he can put on his weapons. These poisons can be both lethal or non-lethal depending on how badly 47 wants you dead. He also has his long list of explosives, lob bombs, breaching charges, planted bombs, C4s, proximity mines, Molotov cocktails, grenades, and exploding golf balls. That last one got a laugh out of me. Now here's where everything becomes extremely one-sided. All of the Spy's abilities. 47 has nothing in this category, but the Spy has strength that increases his power and durability, vampire that heals him from oncoming damage, reflect which can reflect 80% of damage, haste which ups firing and reload speed, regeneration which regens his ammo, precision which reduces the spread of his bullets, agility which increases his speed by 50% and his jumping by 80%. King gives a power boost, regeneration, and increased fire/reload speeds. Plague can make an enemy bleed out. Supernova paralyzes all opponents, Revenge which gives Spy a crit boost, and Blast which gives Spy fire resistance. Damn, that's a lot. Most of these abilities will give Spy a clear advantage over 47, which is why I think the Spy has this hands down. He is a lot faster, stronger, and more durable than Agent 47. And where his arsenal isn't more impressive, his abilities do make him just too much for Agent 47. 47 has his nuke that he could launch, or his briefcase that could kill enemies in one hit, but the Spy would never give Agent 47 a moment to use those win cons with his better speed and strength. In all though, this could be a really fun episode of Death Battle, and I really hope we end up getting it in the future. It's just so fun and wacky. I need it now. And number 1, Bendy vs. Cuphead. These are two indie game characters that released in 2017. They are both inspired by the golden age of animation, and both deal with demons and devils. Cuphead signing a contract with the devil and Bendy being a type of devil himself. If you've seen the DBX, you know the appeal of this matchup, but there's so much more they can do here. In this debate, Saul decided to sit this one out and let Pin and Germ represent Bendy and Cuphead. This dynamic is so interesting. Bendy is not a very traditional enemy, even for Cuphead. They both have Toon Force, but Bendy has two different forms, with the first form accentuating his Toon Force powers. His first form gives him Squash and Stretch, has a magic sack to pull out different swords, guns, and explosives, telekinesis, can create ink creatures, has a giant magnet boots that lets him walk on any surface, a grappling hook, an instant hot air balloon, and a magic pitchfork that can bring objects to life. This Bendy can do a lot, but Cuphead would have the advantage if this was all he could do. Cuphead specializes in different finger guns, a generic pea shooter, the chaser which will lock onto an opponent, the chopper which will bounce off the ground, the spread shot which is like a shotgun, the charge shot which is a large powerful shot, and the roundabout that will move in an arc similar to a boomerang. With Cuphead's fighting style, Bendy would be kind of a sitting duck, but that's where Demon Bendy comes into play. In this form, he has sharp claws and sharp teeth, can turn small animals into large and dangerous creatures or even just create groups of ink beasts. It's important to note that Bendy is made of ink, so he is extremely hard to kill. He can regenerate and would have complete arena control. It's not like Cuphead hasn't dealt with dozens of enemies before though. Aiding Cuphead are his charms. He can have charms that give him more health, morph his body into objects like an axe, teleport with a smoke bomb which makes him intangible, can passively build up his super meter, and can have the ability to auto parry. Cuphead can parry certain attacks and use those parries to also build up his super meter. This super meter lets him use super arts. Some arts let him shoot giant beams of energy, can generally boost his stats, and turn himself into a buff spirit that can do major damage. They pretty much agreed that Bendy and Cuphead were even for power, but that Cuphead was quite a bit faster. Cuphead is kind of an idiot though. Bendy is much smarter. Bendy can use fear manipulation, has enhanced senses, he can corrupt Cuphead with his ink, can teleport, cause hallucinations, and can banish people back into becoming ink. This ink banishment is interesting because it comes down to interpretation. Either you believe Cuphead is made of ink or you don't. For me, I think it's possible that this could work on Cuphead. I mean, he's from Inkwell Isle for fuck's sake. But they don't think this should work and their reasoning is pretty sound. Bendy can also use ink to absorb souls, although Cuphead has ways to avoid that. Again, not only is Cuphead faster, he has a plane he can fly to avoid the ground. He can even turn himself into a big bomb and destroy parts of the arena, creating a giant hole where there's no ink. Cuphead has a genie that can grant wishes to add to his health, making him a bit less killable, has a magic pencil that can draw or erase anything, even potentially Bendy or his ink machine, and can even evaporate Bendy's ink with his energy attacks alone. Bendy only really has a weakness to electricity. This would revert Bendy into his weaker Toon form. But what's this? Cuphead can shoot lightning in the DLC? Damn, that's such a big advantage right there. There's a big debate on how Bendy would lose. Cuphead having his soul absorbed is a very real win con, but how could Cuphead win? Bendy will never die as long as the cycle continues. But with Cuphead's superior speed, maybe it's possible for him to destroy the ink machine. If he does, I think that would definitely stop Bendy from coming back to life. Now, I was actually thinking Cuphead would win, but by a small margin. But then Saul came in at the end and ruined every chance I thought Bendy had. Well, it turned out that Bendy is a lot weaker and a lot slower than we thought. Cuphead has a sweater that I think helps prevent his soul from getting stolen, and most importantly, a trident that can rewind time, shoot really strong energy, and can give something life. I'm sorry, Saul. Try as I might here, I just don't understand what you're trying to say. Cuphead without a doubt wins this now, but this fight and this dynamic is so interesting, and the story they can tell is just so enthralling. This is by far my favorite matchup they've ever covered on DBM Cast so far, and is an episode I really need on the show. And that's everything that DBM Cast has to offer right now. I know I might seem critical about Saul, Pin, and Germ throughout this video, but understand that this podcast is very casual and is just meant for them to have fun. They don't dig too deep into these debates debates, and I've been told that they exaggerate their frustrations just for the hell of it. I have it on good knowledge that this podcast is getting revamped, so I'll link Saul's channel in the description below. Please go show them some love whenever you get the chance. I like this podcast. The matchups can be unconventional, but that's a good thing. Ganon vs. Sauron is now one of my most wanted episodes, and I never would have heard about that matchup without this podcast. Now to end this video, I want to give everyone in the community 3 tips on debating Saul in a live debate. Number 1, just learn Saul's characters enough to know when he's overinflating or lying. Nobodies aren't non-existent creatures. Spelunky isn't immune to poison after I researched that, and the Bewitching Bell isn't a flash of light. As long as you know what characters you are debating against, these tricks shouldn't work on you. Also, if you assert things confidently to make it seem like you couldn't be wrong, then you won't lose the audience's vote. He likes to convince you that you are wrong about certain facts, and even if you are, just stand your ground. Number 2, he makes mistakes as he gets frustrated, forgetting important information until the end. We see this in his last few podcasts, where he has to double back to make points that are pretty important. And number 3, don't let Saul exhaust you. Saul is exhausting to debate. He kills with charisma, so to say. He can be so overly energetic that it just drains you. We see this in Spy vs. Agent 47, where the juror is actively saying that the feat where Agent 47's briefcase is an instant kill could be used, but the person debating Saul just kind of gives up on the point because it's just so exhausted. Saul is a good debater, so whether it's a fan battle cast or his own series, I hope you stand a better chance of going against him. I'm gonna leave this video off here though. I am so tired. I've watched and noted down and scripted podcast episodes every day for the last 2 months, so I need a bit of a break from that. Expect the monthly podcast videos, but not any more than that. I've got some Amori vs. Room to talk about next month. Until next time everyone, take care and have a wonderful day.